Whew. Well, here we are, people. We made it to 2013, and we still haven't made it to the end of this retrospective. We've now gone from the 26th to the 27th year of the Zelda franchise's existence to get through this 25th anniversary celebration. I didn't think it would take this long to get through all of these games, but I'm sticking through it no matter how difficult it may be. Why has it gotten difficult? I'll get to that eventually.
Okay, The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks is, well, it's another game I have mixed feelings about. It uses a new steampunk-themed setting that's actually pretty impressive to me. On the other hand, it throws yet another monkey wrench into my timeline plans, and well, I'll get to that later. The second Zelda game, released for the Nintendo DS, is a direct sequel to Phantom Hourglass, continuing the history of the adult timeline. Set about 100 years after that last game, the descendants of Link and Tetra now colonize a new Hyrule that is steeped in the legacy of the Wind Waker and Phantom Hourglass. And this land has now reached the age of rail, and in fact, being a rail engineer is a pretty damn big deal here, to the point where the princess herself appoints them. Yes, being able to run a train is the equivalent of being a knight in this new world. That's what your character is doing at the outset, following an exposition piece that's almost a cop-out of Phantom Hourglass. Wow, and people have actually accused this game of just copying itself over and over. So your Link in this game is getting his engineer's certificate from the princess to start the game, but then she asks you to complete the old sneak past the guards trick from previous games to meet her up in her room and take her up to the tower and get your heads out of the gutter, people! It has to do with the railroad tracks in the land disappearing, and sure enough, the tower goes completely haywire, and it turns out the one behind it all is Hyrule's Chancellor? No! So the guy with the demonic grin who had to wear 2 hats and was a total jerk was evil? Oh, but he had such good references! Chancellor Cole and his lackey Staven steal Zelda's body, leaving her a ghost that only Link can see? Oh no, it's the missing Link story from the Zelda cartoon, only in reverse! The plot is that by removing the spirit tracks, Cole can release a demon that was imprisoned years ago and have it possess Zelda's body. Your mission is to find the 4 rail glyphs that will restore the tracks and the energy that binds the demon into his prison. Yeah, these people should have taken a lesson from the other timeline as to how well magically binding a monster always works. Of course, first off, you have to get your standard sword and shield, and once again, you have to go through being taught how to use the controls, in this case the DS stylus, in order to wield them. It can be tedious like always, especially if you've played the other games before, but hey, at least here it can be explained by having a different Link in most of the games who's never before used these weapons. Once again, it's not like some other games that have been reviewed online.
Who are the gargoyles? The Codex of Ultimate Wisdom? What's a paladin?
Of course, there are some new things you have to learn, like how to operate your train that transports you from one end of this new world to another. Once again, continuing the theme of the other games in this timeline about how part of the adventure is traveling from one end to another using special vehicles. The Spirit Train is your equivalent of the boats from the last games in the series, and there are several upgrades you can make to it throughout the game, like passenger cars and cannons. You can switch to different engines and trains as well, but I'll get to that in a moment. Oh, and Zelda's spirit is your guide in this game, and yes, she's also a lot more annoying than Navi. This girl's ancestor was a pirate captain. Tetra is spinning in her tomb. Well, she does have one major use in possessing these soldiers called phantoms that is needed to reach certain places and beat certain monsters that Link can't do on his own. So yeah, in a way, she is kind of even more useful than even Shake's form, and in a way is the most assisting Zelda of perhaps the entire series. So, with the help of members of the Locomo people like Anjean and Gage, you need to find the glyphs and restore their energy using Zelda's wind pipes and the instruments of the sages to play the songs of restoration, then release the force gems at the temples that restore the energy to the tracks. Restoring the tracks restores the tower piece by piece, and each restored section is where you find the next glyph. Oh yeah, Linebeck's descendant is here as well, and remember how this character wasn't that annoying the last time? Not the case here! The first thing he does when you meet him is send you to get the carpenter he needs to fix the bridge to the ocean realm, then he sticks you with the carpenter's bill, forcing you to hunt down the last piece of treasure that the old Linebeck had to pay the debt. Hey, buddy, at least your grandfather stood up to the bad guy and made a relatively selfless act in the end. All you do after this is charge our hero ungodly amounts of treasure to get fancy upgrades to his train. Yes, people, Linebeck is becoming the new Tingle. Once you restore the tower, climb up to the very top, and beat Cole's goon Staven, you discover that you're too late and the Demon King Miletus has been reborn. See, we shouldn't have stopped for snacks on the way. And then we get this full scene with nothing but images right up there with Majara's mask for a level of disturbing. Why do people insist Nintendo games are just made for kids again? The only way to beat Miletus is to find the Bow of Light in the fifth and final temple. See, it always comes back to that bow, doesn't it? Get the bow, and Anjean gives you the Locomo sword that looks very familiar, and Staven pulls a full face turn to tell you where to find the Compass of Light you need to hunt down Cole's demon train. With that, you must enter the Dark Realm itself, and how convenient that the Dark Realm in this age has built an entire railroad system. And here in North Texas, we can't even get a rail line linking Dallas to the Ranger games. Once you purge Miletus from Zelda, she has to summon the assistance of her granny Tetra to return to her body and... Okay, that was funny. And Miletus decides he no longer wants a body with ovaries anyway, so he decides his willing servant Cole will suffice. See, this is why you read the fine print before entering any partnerships.
Overall, The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks is a game that may, as usual, use the same puzzles and game elements from its predecessors, but the storyline is what's the most fascinating. The theme of adding modern technology to a franchise that has mostly relied on sword and sorcery creates a new realm of possibilities as to where this new Hyrule's history is going to go. Such elements have been attempted in the Final Fantasy series, for example, but Miyamoto, Anamura, and the Zelda designers have so far posted a better track record of making good games, so the hopes can be much higher that Zelda in a modern-day, postmodern setting can be promising. The problem with this game? It completely fracked up my timeline theory!
I mean, the one good thing is that this game's setting solidifies the adult timeline and the new Hyrule for all intents. All those games use the cel-shaded graphics system, and they employ a new cast of supporting characters that have a connection to one another. And there are references to the previous games in their own chronology. So this timeline is actually very stable, and it's easy to see what games are part of it. The problem is that this ruins my earlier suggestion that the Vati or Four Sword games take place in that timeline. So now I have to shoehorn in those games back into the old child timeline? If they're officially canon, I can still barely fit Twilight Princess in there. What happened to the Four Sword then? If the Minish Cap really did start everything, then why did the Kokiri take up after Link's style rather than vice versa? Just how many times has Ganon been banned to the Dark World before the sages realize it doesn't work?
It just seems like every time a new game answers one question, it creates 5 more like this game did. And you know what else? The next game won't do anything in answering those questions. One more to go, people. One game left in the series before we try to make some sense out of all this madness.